Hey guys, Hidden Truths here. Welcome to this new video with a bunch of new stories. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers and I think we can do it with your help. So please subscribe. It would honestly mean a lot to me. Now, let's get right into the stories.
They always say your past catches up to you. They never say it'll wear a name tag, hold a paper cup of warm punch, and ask what you've been up to since the incident. The gym looked smaller, of course. Most things do after 30 years. But the bleachers still creaked in that same off-key rhythm, and the air had that familiar varnish and vinegar scent. Balloons bobbed on curling ribbon near the check-in table, and someone had gone all out with the string lights. Cheap magic, but it worked. It made us softer somehow, more willing to laugh at the lines on each other's faces. My name tag said Jonah Brooks, 95, like it was supposed to help people recognize me. It didn't. They looked at it, then at me, and then they really looked at me. Like I was a puzzle they weren't sure they wanted to solve. I skipped every reunion until this one. Not out of pride, or shame. Just didn't see the point. Until I heard they were opening the time capsule. We buried it the week before graduation, May of 1995. The same week Aria Solis vanished, and I vanished in my own way. I was 17. I thought I knew everything. I didn't even know how to say goodbye. They had the capsule on a rolling cart near the bleachers, stainless steel, dented and streaked with old tape marks. A few guys from the AV club, now grown up with lanyards and Bluetooth headsets, were fussing with the microphone. There was a blank name tag taped to the check-in table, just one. No handwriting on it. Just a silent square of white. I knew exactly whose it was. Aria Solis. Senior year, she appeared like a secret no one wanted to talk about. A transfer student in spring. Who even does that? Her hair was always slightly windblown, like she never finished arriving. I was the one who showed her where the vending machines were. After that, we orbited each other like the last two satellites in a dead sky. People asked what happened to her. Teachers said, transfer, like it was a magic trick and not a disappearance. The truth? I never really told anyone. But I came tonight for her, or at least, for whatever she left behind. The old principal, now retired and resurrected for the evening, took the mic and tapped it like he was calling on the ghost of someone. "Welcome back, Eagles," he said, and it echoed against the rafters. A few people whooped. Tonight, we open the time capsule. 30 years ago, you wrote yourselves letters, tucked in memorabilia, shared your visions of the future. We preserved them all, just as you left them. No edits. No deletions. He gestured toward the cart like it was an altar. Then he held up a clipboard. We have an itemized list from 1995, typed and sealed in the school vault. Just to make sure nothing's gone missing. I'll read it aloud before we open anything. I leaned against the bleacher rail and crossed my arms. I felt the storm before I heard it, a low growl that rolled through the gym like a breath being held. The windows quivered. Someone murmured about déjà vu. I remembered that week. The weather was the same. Everything else was different. The principal read off the list: one varsity jacket. A collection of cassette tapes. A list of senior superlatives. Predictions from Ms. Randall's English class. Photographs, Polaroid, labeled. A bottle of Surge, unopened. Well, we'll see about that. A detention slip with a student's apology written on the back. Laughter. Then he paused. One sealed letter marked, "Do not open until 30-year reunion." Recipient, J.B. For a moment, the only sound was the fizz of the punch bowl pump. Then someone coughed. I felt it like a pin in my spine. The crowd was looking around for J.B., wondering who that was. But a few were already looking at me. Jonah Brooks. I didn't remember writing a letter to myself. I didn't even know anyone else had. Especially not Arya. Because if it was from her, it had to be, didn't it? Then this was more than a high school stunt. This was a message from the one person who knew why I vanished before graduation. The one person who never got to say goodbye either. The principal adjusted his glasses. Well, I guess we'll find out what that's about soon enough. I didn't move. My hands were locked behind my back, fingers curled tight. I stared at the capsule like it might whisper something if I waited long enough. Arya once told me time doesn't erase anything, it just buries it deeper. Sometimes you have to dig it up to breathe again. I came tonight to see what we buried. Now I wasn't so sure I wanted to unearth it. The principal clapped his hands. All right. Let's open her up. A cheer went up around the gym, but I didn't join in. I walked to the cart, steadying it with one hand as the wheels squeaked in protest. Lightning flared through the skylights. For just a second, everything looked like it had back then. Arya's voice echoed in my head like a skipped track. If anyone asks, you never saw me. And now, after 30 years, I was about to see her again. Or at least, the part she left behind. The first time I saw Arya Solis, she was sitting on the edge of the senior parking lot, a Walkman in her lap and her legs swinging like she was waiting for something better than a bell. I hadn't meant to talk to her. I was just cutting through to avoid Coach Lanning, who still wanted me to try out for baseball even after I told him I didn't like being watched. But then she looked up, and whatever I was avoiding didn't matter anymore. Her eyes were the color of rust after a storm, something beautiful, but already breaking. She asked me if I knew where the vending machines were. I said yeah. Then she asked if I wanted to skip fifth period and go watch the clouds. I said yeah again, like I'd been waiting for the question my whole life. That was February. By March, we had a routine. Night drives to the river overlook in my dad's station wagon, which smelled like motor oil and old French fries. Polaroids snapped without warning, blurry proof that we were real. She'd make me mix tapes with cryptic Sharpie labels like, for when you can't sleep but don't want to wake up either. We never called it dating. We just kept showing up for each other until it became the most honest thing in my life. She never talked about her past, and I didn't ask. I didn't want to scare her off by acting like I deserved to know. But she had a strange obsession with hiding things. Once, while we sat by the river, she said, "You ever think about saving a moment by pretending it's a message?" I laughed. "You mean like a time capsule?" "Exactly," she said. "But more than junk and jokes. I mean real things. Like the promises you don't want to say out loud, so you bury them and hope they grow." I didn't know what to say to that. So I nodded like I understood. That spring, everything felt like it was about to begin. College brochures. Last period daydreams. A class trip we never took because the funding fell through. But it didn't matter. The future still felt huge. Arya made it feel possible. We talked about leaving town like it was a dare we'd make good on. She said we'd meet on the coast one day, when we had nothing to lose. I told her I'd bring snacks and she'd bring better music. In late April, the school announced the time capsule. Ms. Randall made us each write a note to our future selves, predictions, confessions, hopes, whatever. Arya took it way too seriously. She spent 2 days drafting hers. I saw her crumple at least 5 pages before she sealed the final one. Her hands shook as she folded it. She didn't say what it said. Just that it mattered. When I asked if she wanted to include anything else, she smiled and held up a cassette tape with our favorite song on it, one we always played on our way back from the river. She'd cut it so that the chorus looped endlessly. She called it, "The Heartbeat." As I sealed my own envelope, I caught myself writing her name. To Arya, just like that, without thinking. I paused. Scratched it out. Started over. She noticed. "You almost wrote my name." I shrugged. Felt like I should. Her smile dimmed just enough for me to see the edge of something buried. Don't, she said quietly. Promise me. Don't name me in yours. Why? Because some things stay safer if they're anonymous. Some things. Or some people. It was the Friday before graduation when everything cracked. We were supposed to meet after school, one last river drive. But I got home first. The house phone rang just after 6. My mom answered, then handed me the receiver with a worried look. It was Arya. Her voice was tight, urgent. She didn't say hello. Didn't say my name. If anyone asks, she whispered, you never saw me. Tonight or any night. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor, heart pounding. What's going on? I can't explain. Just, promise me, Jonah. Please. The click of the line going dead was louder than it should have been. She didn't come to school the next Monday. Or the next. Rumors spread fast. One teacher said her family moved back east. Another said there'd been a domestic situation, like it was a footnote. I heard someone joke that Arya was probably a spy. I almost hit him. But I didn't tell anyone the truth. I kept my promise. She disappeared the same week the time capsule was sealed. No goodbye. No explanation. And me? I started sleeping in. Stopped answering calls. I didn't even walk at graduation. My parents told people I was going through a phase. Maybe I was. A very long one. I left town that summer and didn't come back until tonight. Back in the gym, the rain struck harder against the roof like it was trying to shake something loose. I stared at the capsule, my fingers twitching. I wasn't the only one watching it. On the far side of the gym, a woman with a camera raised her lens. She looked like she'd been waiting for something too. She had Arya's cheekbones. Not 30 years older, more like 28. Too young to be her. But maybe not too young to be connected. She lifted the camera. Then slowly lowered it again. Our eyes met for less than a second. Then she vanished into the crowd. The lights flickered. Thunder rolled. Someone joked about ghosts. But no one laughed. Someone else called out, "Open it anyway." The capsule groaned as we cracked the seal. Something old and forgotten was about to breathe again. The year Arya disappeared, nobody knew how to talk about it. So they talked around it. They smoothed the story down like a wrinkle in a tablecloth. She transferred. There was a family thing. She never really settled in anyway. But the truth is, she had settled, in a way none of them saw. Because she never gave herself to crowds. She gave herself to moments. To whispers under trees. To cassette tapes looped in beat-up dashboards. To me. The adults needed a version they could manage. So they gave her one. I kept the messy one. I was the emergency. I didn't understand all of it then. Just that she left in a hurry, and I wasn't supposed to follow. That made me a piece of something unfinished. A question she'd buried, maybe even from herself. In the weeks after, I found ways to vanish too. Not all at once. Just slowly, like something evaporating. I didn't answer questions. I skipped prom, then finals. My acceptance letter sat unopened on the dining room table until the deadline passed. I took long walks down back roads I never turned around on. And by the time graduation came, I was a ghost in every group photo. No one ever asked me directly about her. But I saw the looks. They were close. She changed him. He probably knows. I did. But I kept it to myself. If Arya was a secret, then I was the vault. Now, 30 years later, I stood in a gym full of wrinkles and reconnections, facing a sealed capsule that suddenly felt more like a trapdoor. The storm knocked the power out. A gasp went up, followed by nervous laughter. String lights blinked off one by one. Phones lit the darkness in little halos. Someone behind me said, "Guess we're doing this old school." A dozen phone flashlights angled down toward the cart. Shadows danced against the bleachers as someone pried the lid open with a screwdriver. There was a hiss, air escaping from decades of silence. The first thing out was a varsity jacket, stiff with time. Next, Polaroids yellowed at the corners. A bottle of Surge that looked like a radioactive snow globe. A few tapes. A mixtape labeled, "Don't Skip Track 4, got a laugh." And then the envelope. The MC read it slowly, holding it up like it might dissolve in his hands. "Do not open until 30-year reunion. Recipient, J. B." He looked around. Jonah Brooks? I stepped forward, heart punching my ribs. He handed it to me with both hands, like it was sacred. It felt cold, heavier than paper should. There was no return address, no date. Just my initials in a handwriting I hadn't seen in 30 years, but somehow recognized in an instant. Aria. I wanted to open it right there. I didn't. Instead, I slipped it into my jacket pocket and backed away, like I'd just picked up a spark from a live wire. People began to drift back toward their conversations, distracted by wine and whispers and old songs that sounded younger than we were. But I stayed still, letter in hand, thunder in my ears. That's when I saw her again. The photographer. She was near the bleachers now, flipping through her camera settings. She looked up once, just long enough to meet my eyes. She had Aria's cheekbones, Aria's half-smile. But her gaze was sharp, deliberate. Like she was watching for a signal I didn't know I was sending. I crossed the gym, weaving past couples reenacting prom poses, ducking under string lights now lit only by candle backup. But she was gone. Only a small black camera bag remained, slung over a folding chair. And tucked just beneath it, tucked deliberately, was a business card. No phone number. No website. Just 2 words in script, June S. And a sketch on the back. A river. With a bend. 2 trees. And an X. I knew the spot. We used to go there after dark and name stars we couldn't prove existed. Aria once said we should write our own constellations, because the old ones didn't include us. If this was her daughter, our daughter, then the truth had waited 30 years to find its voice. I stepped outside the gym. The storm had settled into a quiet hum, rain dripping off the eaves. The air smelled like wet leaves and electricity. I unfolded the card again. The sketch wasn't just a map. It was a memory. At the bottom, faint pencil marks read. If you still want the truth, meet the current where we named the stars. Tuesday. 9 p.m., today was Sunday. I slid the letter out of my pocket and held it in both hands. Not yet. Not here. The answers were waiting. But I wanted them from her mouth, not her pen. Behind me, the gym buzzed back to life as the lights snapped on. Cheers. Music. Nostalgia resumed its regular broadcast. I slipped the card back into my pocket and walked to my car, soaked and shaking. I hadn't seen her in 30 years. But somehow, the story she buried had surfaced. And it was calling me home. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid on the hotel mattress, watching headlights pass through the curtains like ghosts pacing the hallway. The envelope lay untouched on the nightstand. I kept glancing at it, as if it might open itself. As if Aria's handwriting might crawl off the page and whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. I waited until the first gray smear of daylight cracked the window. Then I read it. The paper had yellowed slightly, but her ink was sharp. No dates. No signature. Just a voice I hadn't heard in 3 decades. Jonah. If you're reading this, it means you stayed. It means I didn't get to tell you in person, and I'm sorry. I wanted to. I tried. The truth is, I didn't leave because of you. I left because someone was watching. Not the school, not the town. Him. My hands tightened. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing. His name doesn't belong on this page. He already took enough. He wasn't my father. But he was the one who thought he owned my mother. And after she got free, he thought he owned me too. He wasn't just angry. He was careful. The kind of man who smiled in grocery stores and threatened you through the cereal boxes. We moved to this town to disappear. But he found us again by spring. When I met you, I didn't think it mattered. I thought I could keep my life split down the middle, fear on one side, you on the other. But the closer we got, the thinner that wall became. I wiped my palms on my jeans. The hotel room was quiet, save for the hum of the mini fridge and the louder hum of my pulse. The week of graduation, he showed up again. Said he'd been watching. Said if I didn't disappear, he'd make me disappear. But here's the thing, I wasn't afraid for me anymore. I was afraid for you. You were my favorite place I'd ever been. And I wasn't about to let him map that. So I left. I made my mother swear to tell the school it was a transfer. I called you that night because I knew you'd ask questions. I knew you'd follow me if I let you. I couldn't let you. If I mailed this, it might get intercepted. If I told someone else, it could become a rumor. So I buried it. The one place no one would dig. With the other memories. With the things we pretended were just for fun. The capsule. The joke we made serious. If you're reading this at the 30-year reunion, then we made it. At least far enough to look back without fear. There's more to tell. But not in a letter. If you still want the truth, meet me where we named the stars. Tuesday. 9 p.m., the river knows the way. I'll be there. If I'm not, she will. Either way, you're not alone in this anymore. I didn't cry. Not then. But I did sit in the hotel chair for an hour, turning the letter over like it might reveal more if I held it just right. She will. That had to mean June. That photographer with the Solis cheekbones. If Aria wasn't there, June would be. Why? And then the rest caught up to me. She ran to protect me. Not from a scandal. From a man. And somehow, in a strange act of faith, she buried the truth. Not to forget, but to save it. To save me. Tuesday arrived like thunder waiting to happen. The sky was already bruised when I pulled off the old gravel road and stepped onto the trail that led to the river overlook. Same trees. Same wind through the reeds. Same hush in the air, like the woods knew secrets they didn't speak out loud. I carried nothing but the letter in my coat pocket. At the ridge, I saw her. Older. Wrapped in a raincoat, hair tucked behind her ears the way she used to do when the wind came. She didn't move until I was close enough to see her eyes. Still rust-colored. Still breaking. But this time, she didn't look away. She smiled. Just a little. You came, she said softly. I read the letter. She nodded. Her voice had aged, but not softened. It had a strength I hadn't known to look for back then. June stood a few yards away, watching us quietly, hands in her pockets. Her presence didn't interrupt, it completed. Aria looked at me. Really looked. I wasn't sure if you'd still want to hear the rest. I waited 30 years, I said. Might as well stay for the ending. Her expression flickered, something like regret, something like release. There's no ending, she said. Just the rest of the story. The river hadn't changed much. Still carved its slow path beneath the overlook, muddy and deep and humming with the secrets of 3 decades. Back then, Arya and I called it the current. We'd lie in the back of my dad's wagon, watching the stars through the cracked sunroof, inventing constellations only we could name. That one's for escape. That one's for memory. That one? That's for staying lost on purpose. Now we stood side by side, older, quieter, full of pages we hadn't read aloud. She kept her arms folded. Her jaw was set tight, like it cost her something just to be here. I waited. Let the silence fill the space between us. I owed her that much. Finally, she said, "You ever wonder what version of me people believed?" I nodded. All the time. She looked down at the river. I heard one rumor said I joined the circus. That was the nicer version. She smiled, small and tired. I figured the real version wasn't built to be nice. No, I said. But it was yours. She nodded again. Then she spoke, all at once, like letting it out was the only way to carry it. I had a daughter. 2 months after I left. I gave her my mother's last name. Solis. The courts wouldn't protect us, Jonah. Not really. Restraining orders don't stop men like him. And if I'd stayed, he would have found you, too. So I cut everything off. Left no trails. Every time I tried to send a letter, it got returned. Wrong address, no forwarding. I closed my eyes, just for a second. I kept waiting for someone to knock, she said. For the past to track me down. But then I watched her grow up. Strong. Unafraid. And I thought maybe the time capsule was the only way I could leave the door open without opening it too wide. She turned toward June. She's the one who wanted to come tonight. She found the address on an old postcard I left in a shoebox. Figured out what the capsule might mean. June stood still. She hadn't come closer yet. Wasn't sure if she should. I looked at her, at the face that mirrored Arya's in half-forgotten ways. "Hi," she said, almost shyly. "I'm me." It broke something in my chest. Arya gave her a soft nod, then turned back to me. "I never asked anything of you. I didn't think it would be fair." "It wouldn't have mattered," I said. "If I'd known, I would have found a way. That's exactly why I couldn't let you." We were quiet again. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something small. A cassette tape. Labeled in faded ink, The Heartbeat. I copied the original. Thought you might still have a way to play it. I took it. The label was worn, but her handwriting hadn't faded. It still curved the same. Still spelled out a message without saying the words. "I don't need a Walkman to remember it," I said. The wind shifted. A few leaves scraped past our feet. Down by the water, a heron lifted off and glided low, as if afraid to break the surface. "I didn't come back to change anything," I said quietly. "I just wanted to understand." She nodded. "Me too." I took a slow step toward her. Then another. Close enough now to see the tiny lines at the corners of her eyes. The scar on her left knuckle she'd once gotten from trying to slice an orange with a pocket knife. She didn't back away. "I'm not asking for a do-over," I said. "That version of us lived a full life, even if no one else saw it. I just want to know if this one, right here, gets a second act." She searched my face for a long moment. Then, softly, she said, "You're still the only place I ever felt real." That was enough. I reached for her hand. She didn't take mine immediately. She looked at it. Thought about it. Then placed hers gently inside, like she was saying yes to something that didn't need to be spoken. We stood that way for a while. Long enough for the river to forget we hadn't always belonged here. June gave us space. She wandered down the hill a bit, snapping a photo of the sky without asking us to pose. Arya leaned her head against my shoulder. The wind picked up, and I heard her whisper something under her breath. I didn't catch the words. But I didn't need to. Some futures don't arrive late. They arrive right on time. When you're finally old enough to open them.